They said it would be a beautiful journey, just carry the baby, sign the papers, walk away. No one warned me that the father would look at me the way he did. That his late-night messages would linger. That I'd be pulled into a home where the boundaries blurred, and hearts were never safe. To all my loyal subscribers, thank you for sticking with me. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me for more true life stories filled with twists, betrayal, and raw emotion. They found me through an agency. It wasn't anything glamorous, just a form, a background check, a few long phone calls. And then suddenly, I was sitting across from Ryan and Samantha Blake in a quiet cafe on a snowy afternoon in Chicago. They looked like the kind of couple you see in magazines, wealthy, beautiful, put together. Samantha smiled politely, but her eyes never softened. Ryan, though, he was different. Warm handshake. Gentle voice. The kind of man who asked questions and waited for the answers. I know this might be awkward, he said. But we want you to feel comfortable. We want this to feel human. It was supposed to be simple. Carry their baby, hand it over, go back to my life. But nothing about what came next was simple. I was 28, single, and working part-time at a floral shop in Ohio when I first considered becoming a surrogate. I'd lost my mom the year before, had no kids of my own, and felt like I needed to do something meaningful, something that mattered. When the agency told me there was a couple in Illinois who had tried everything and were ready to move forward, I said yes without hesitation. At first, everything went by the book. Medical tests. Legal documents. A trip to the clinic. The embryo transfer happened in January, and by February, I was pregnant. Ryan and Samantha invited me to stay in a guest home on their property, a beautiful little cottage just behind their main house. They said it would be easier that way, to be close for appointments and emergencies. They even offered to cover my missed work. I didn't expect to say yes, but something in me whispered it was the right thing. And at first, it was fine. The guest house was cozy and clean. There were fresh flowers on the kitchen counter when I arrived, from the garden, Ryan had said, smiling like it was nothing. Samantha worked long hours as a marketing executive in the city. She'd come home late, sometimes barely looking my way. But Ryan, he was around. He made tea on rainy mornings. Picked up prenatal vitamins without being asked. Brought back my favorite snacks after doctor visits. One evening, about 7 weeks into the pregnancy, I was curled up on the couch in the guest house when there was a knock on the door. It was Ryan. I just wanted to check in, he said, holding a small brown bag. I got you those ginger candies the nurse mentioned. Thought they might help with the nausea. I smiled, surprised. Thank you, I said quietly, reaching for the bag. Our fingers touched briefly. Just a second. But I felt it. The shift. It was too early to call it anything. Too soon to make sense of it. But something changed that night. From then on, I noticed the way he looked at me when I laughed. The way he lingered during conversations. How his compliments started to sound less like gratitude and more like affection. You're glowing, he said once as I stood outside in the garden, the sun behind me. This baby's lucky to have you. I wanted to believe that was all it was, kindness. Gratitude. Nothing more. But deep down, I felt the pull. And I knew I wasn't the only one feeling it. Still, I kept telling myself, I was just the surrogate. I had one job. Carry the baby. Sign the papers. Walk away. But the way Ryan watched me, like I was more than just a vessel, like he saw something in me, that wasn't part of the plan. And slowly, quietly, the plan was beginning to unravel. Samantha was always busy. Her days started early, leaving before sunrise and returning after dark. Sometimes, she didn't even stop at the guest house to say hello. She'd walk right past, heels clicking down the stone path, her shoulders stiff, her eyes tired. On some days, I didn't see her at all. I tried not to think much of it. Maybe that was just how their life worked. Maybe the baby meant more to her than she let on. But then I started noticing things. At dinner one evening, one of the few nights she'd invited me to eat with them, I noticed how quiet they were. Ryan made conversation, light and cheerful, asking about how I felt, what the doctor said, if the baby was kicking yet. Samantha just sipped her wine, her eyes never meeting mine. When Ryan asked if we should plan a visit to the ultrasound center together next week, Samantha shrugged and said, if I can fit it in. She didn't say much more. That night, back in the guest house, I sat in bed thinking about the moment. How he looked at her. How she looked away. How the air between them was heavy in a way that had nothing to do with me, and yet, somehow, it did. A few days later, Samantha was gone again. Out of town for a client meeting. Ryan knocked on the guest house door with a warm smile and a bag of groceries. I made lasagna, he said. Hope that's okay. We ate at the little table in my kitchenette. The food was good, too good for someone who claimed not to be a great cook. You sure you didn't order this from somewhere? I teased. He laughed, that deep, soft laugh that always made the walls feel a little less close. I had a lot of time to learn, he said. When we were going through treatments. Samantha didn't have much of an appetite. I cooked for myself. Gave me something to focus on. There it was again, that flicker of sadness in his voice when he talked about her. Like something inside him had been slowly wearing thin. She doesn't talk much about that time, I said gently. He nodded. She doesn't talk much about anything anymore. We sat in silence for a while. Just two people, sharing a meal in a quiet house. A baby growing between us, mind and body, there's a name. I didn't expect to feel this close, Ryan said suddenly, his eyes dropping to the table. To the baby. To all of this. I didn't know what to say. But I felt it too. The closeness. The confusion. The way everything had started to blur. We were crossing a line, even if we hadn't said anything out loud. Even if we hadn't done anything, yet. That weekend, it snowed hard. The power flickered a few times, and Ryan came by to check on the generator. Just in case, he said, brushing snow from his coat. Want me to bring you some candles? I nodded. He left, then returned with a box of them and a soft, thick blanket. I figured you could use something warm. I thanked him. He stood there for a second, like he didn't want to leave. The silence was full of things neither of us said. But I felt the weight of it. So did he. The next day, I saw Samantha through the window. She stood in their kitchen, her phone to her ear, her eyes locked on the guest house. Watching. She knew something was shifting. And she wasn't wrong. Something had begun to grow, quietly, like the baby inside me. But this wasn't just about motherhood anymore. It was about hearts. About promises. About a line that was slowly, dangerously starting to disappear. The days blurred into a haze of quiet routines and forbidden glances. Although I kept reminding myself that I was only here to help carry their baby, something had shifted inside me. The small, almost accidental moments with Ryan had grown into something I could no longer ignore, a deep, confusing connection that threatened everything I had promised myself. It started with a particularly rainy evening. I was in the guest house, restless on an insomnia-filled night. The gentle patter of rain against the window mixed with the low hum of the air conditioner created an almost hypnotic background. I sat on the couch, wrapped in the soft blanket that Ryan had given me a few weeks ago, a gesture that should have been strictly professional, yet it warmed my heart in a way I hadn't expected. I kept replaying his words from the night we had spent together at the cabin in the Catskills. That night, after a long, quiet dinner and when the house had been cloaked in silence, Ryan had leaned in close while I was carrying his concerns about the future. With the soft light of a dying fire illuminating his eyes, he'd asked, "Do you ever imagine what comes after?" I remember the tremble in his voice as he admitted that the connection between us had grown stronger with every visit, every stolen moment. Then, as if compelled by those raw emotions and the inevitability of our situation, our hands brushed. It was nothing more than a fleeting contact, but in that instant, something inside me broke. I tried to push it aside. I convinced myself that I'd simply mistaken sympathy for something else. But every time Ryan smiled at me with that concerned look or offered to help with the baby checkups, a secret warmth ignited inside me. By day, the boundaries remained professional, a few kind words, a gentle touch on the arm, but by night, the tension built slowly, like the steady accumulation of unsaid words. Then came that evening in the nursery. I was adjusting the mobile above the crib, a project meant to brighten the room for the baby and, by extension, for the couple. I heard footsteps behind me, and before I could turn around, Ryan was there. The doorway framed him in a soft halo of light, his eyes glinting with an emotion I both craved and feared. "Emily," he began quietly, his voice low enough that it blended with the soft strains of the lullaby playing in the background, "do you ever feel like this isn't just about the baby?" I froze for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I had practiced saying I felt nothing more, after all, that was the contract. But the truth was more complicated than any form I'd ever signed. He stepped closer. "I can't pretend anymore. Every day, every checkup, every gentle caress when you're in pain, I feel it." His hand reached out to brush a stray lock of hair from my face. It was a simple touch, yet it carried a weight of vulnerability. "I feel like I'm falling for you, Emily, and that terrifies me." My breath caught. I had never anticipated this, never imagined that a man, my intended father, would evoke such raw emotions in me. I wanted to pull away, to remind myself of the boundaries. But in that moment, the longing was too strong. The room felt charged with an electricity I couldn't deny. I looked at him, the seriousness in his gaze, the unspoken apology in his eyes, and suddenly the line I'd held so rigidly in my mind blurred. For a heartbeat, the role of surrogate melted away, and I was no longer just carrying a child. I was caught in a storm of forbidden affection. "Ryan, we can't do this," I whispered, voice trembling even as my heart raced with both fear and desire. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he inched closer until his face was mere inches from mine. "I know it's wrong," he murmured, "but I can't stop feeling what I feel." I tried to ignore it, tried to be professional, but every time I see you, the anger, the pain, they vanish, and all I see is someone I want to hold on to. I closed my eyes. I remembered the promise I had made when I agreed to be a surrogate, to be a vessel, not a partner. That promise now collided head-on with the warmth in his words and the undeniable pull in his eyes. In that moment of raw honesty, every rule, every boundary shattered. We stood there silently, the air thick with unspoken truths and shattered illusions. In the quiet of the nursery, amidst the gentle hum of a lullaby, the inevitable happened. We kissed. It wasn't a violent or desperate kiss. It was slow, trembling, with regret, hope, and a longing to be understood. It was as if all the loneliness, all the days of watching from the sidelines, all the pain of isolation and betrayal wrapped together into that single moment. But as soon as the kiss ended, reality crashed back in. I pulled away, shaking, tears slipping down my cheeks, not just for what we had done, but for what it meant. "I can't," I whispered. "I have to." He reached out, his voice a hoarse plea. "I love you, Emily. I never meant to betray anyone. I never wanted to hurt her. I'm sorry." I looked at him, my heart divided. In that moment, I realized how deeply things had escalated. The warmth between us was real, but so was the guilt, the complexity, and the undeniable truth that this was a mistake, one that would change everything. I stepped back slowly, clearing my throat, fighting the tears that blurred my vision. "I need to figure this out," I said softly. "I need to understand what I want. I can't let this happen again." He nodded silently, his eyes shining with regret and longing. "I won't pressure you," he promised, "but please, don't shut me out completely." In the aftermath, we both returned to our roles, professional, proper, and carefully measured. I resumed my duties in the guest house, My nights a swirling mix of forbidden memory and the cold reality of what we had crossed. But deep inside, I knew the line had been broken forever. And though I tried to hide it, every touch from him, every look in his eyes, reminded me of that moment, the moment when everything changed and my heart was given away, even as I tried to hold on to the one promise that was meant to keep me separate from it all. I spent that night alone in the dark, listening to the rain pelt the roof, grappling with the emotions that refused to be silenced. The connection with Ryan was not just a mistake, it was now part of who I was. And as the hours passed, I made a silent vow: I would find the strength to face whatever came next, even if it meant confronting the deepest parts of my own heart, even if it tore apart the carefully constructed life I once believed in. I tried to carry on like nothing happened. I told myself it was just one kiss, an emotional slip in a moment of confusion. But deep down, I knew better. That kiss had changed everything. Every time I looked at Ryan, I saw it in his eyes too. The quiet longing. The unspoken words. The guilt. And worst of all, I saw it in her eyes too. Claire wasn't a fool. She had been distant for weeks now, and while she chalked it up to stress or fatigue, I knew it was something more. She'd begun watching me differently, too carefully, too long. Her questions lingered longer. Her presence was sharper. And she had started spending more time at home, as if some invisible alarm had gone off inside her. One morning, just after my second trimester checkup, I walked into the kitchen to grab some ginger tea. Claire was there already, waiting by the stove. She didn't smile. "Everything go well at the appointment?" she asked, her tone too neutral. "Yes. The baby's growing perfectly." I tried to sound light, unaffected, but my voice cracked slightly. She studied me for a moment. Then, without turning, she asked, "Has Ryan been different with you lately?" The blood drained from my face. "I mean," she went on, stirring her tea, "you two spend a lot of time together. Sometimes more than I do with him." My mouth opened, then closed. I fumbled for words. "We've just bonded over the baby. That's all." She didn't respond right away. Then she turned, her gaze piercing. "Do you think I'm blind, Emily?" I froze. The room was suddenly too quiet. The steam from our mugs rose between us like a wall of tension we could no longer ignore. "I saw the way he looked at you last week," she continued. "I've seen it before. I know that look." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Claire, I never meant." "That's not a no," she snapped, her voice breaking. She stepped closer, her hands shaking. "You were supposed to help us build our family. Not destroy it." Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced myself to speak. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I swear. I never planned this. I didn't mean to feel anything." Claire's face contorted, anger, betrayal, heartbreak all crashing into each other. "Do you know what it's like," she whispered, "to want something so deeply that you're willing to trust someone with the most fragile dream you have, only for them to take it and turn it into something else?" I couldn't answer. My body trembled with shame. She laughed bitterly. "Do you love him?" I hesitated, too long. That was all the answer she needed. Claire stepped back, like I'd physically struck her. "Get out." "Claire, please," I reached out. "Get out, Emily. Go back to the guest house. Stay away from me. And for God's sake, stay away from him." I gathered myself and left in silence, tears falling freely now. The walls of the guest house felt colder than ever that night. I didn't hear from Ryan. No messages. No knocks on the door. And somehow, that silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The next day, he came. His eyes were bloodshot. His hair disheveled. "She knows." "I know," I whispered. He sank into the chair across from me, burying his face in his hands. "I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt her." "But you did," I said softly. "And so did I." We sat in silence, the gravity of our choices weighing heavily in the air between us. I don't regret the connection, he said after a long pause. But I hate that it's caused this pain. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Because I didn't regret the connection either. But I hated what it cost. She's asked for space, he continued. I'm giving it to her. But she's not sure she wants to keep the baby anymore. Those words landed like a dagger in my chest. What? She said she doesn't know if she can raise a child born from betrayal. No, I whispered, clutching my belly protectively. She can't do that. I'm trying to reason with her. But I think you need to talk to her too. I stared at him, stunned. You think she wants to hear from me right now? I think she deserves to. From the woman who changed everything. The nursery remained unfinished. Every time I passed the door in Claire and Ryan's home, I could feel the shift in energy, like the air held a memory too painful to breathe in. Paint cans sat untouched, and the small giraffe lamp Claire once adored now looked more like a cruel reminder of what we all stood to lose. I hadn't spoken to her since she told me to leave. Days passed, then a week. The silence was unbearable. Ryan tried to keep calm, tried to mediate, but I could tell even he was unraveling. Every time we saw each other, something flickered, longing, guilt, the ache of unfinished feelings, but neither of us moved toward it again. We were too afraid of what more damage it could do. Then, Claire called. She didn't say much. Just, come. We need to talk. When I arrived at their house, the lights were dim. Claire sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea in her hand, her wedding ring on the counter beside her like it no longer belonged. She didn't look angry. Just tired. Wounded in a way that didn't scream, it whispered. I sat across from her, hands clenched. You said you didn't mean to fall for him, she started, voice low. But the thing is, Emily, you did. I swallowed hard, nodding slightly. I didn't want to. But yes. I did. And he let it happen. Her voice cracked, and she covered her mouth for a moment. I trusted you. I trusted both of you. I know, I said, choking back tears. I can never undo that. The silence sat heavy between us. Then, Claire looked at me, and for the first time in days, I saw something different, clarity. I'm keeping the baby, she said. My eyes widened. Not because I've forgiven you. Not because I'm ready to be a mother right now. But because this baby didn't choose any of this mess. And neither did I. But I will choose to love that child, no matter what. My heart swelled with emotion. But I don't want you around when it's born. That shattered me more than anything else. Claire. No, she cut in gently. This was supposed to be a gift. But it became something else. And I can't keep watching the two of you dance around feelings you never should have entertained. I need to raise this baby without your shadow in my home. I nodded, tears spilling freely. I understand. You'll carry the baby, she said, standing slowly. You'll give us that. And when the time comes, you'll walk away. I stood too, my hands trembling. What about Ryan? I'll deal with Ryan. We stared at each other for a moment, two women wrecked by something neither of us saw coming. I never wanted to take anything from you, I whispered. I just wanted to help. You gave us life, she said, voice soft. But you also tore one apart. 3 months later. The hospital lights were too bright. The pain was intense, but manageable. What hurt more was knowing what came next. Ryan was in the room when I gave birth. Claire stood behind him. Silent. Watching. When the baby cried, she did too. I'll never forget the way she looked holding her daughter for the first time, so full of love and pain all at once. I named her Hope before I said goodbye. That was the last time I saw them. 6 months later. I'm living in a different state now. I still think about them every day. I wonder if Claire ever forgave Ryan. I wonder if she ever forgave me. I wonder if little Hope smiles like Ryan or frowns like Claire. Sometimes I dream of her. Sometimes I cry. But I know one thing for sure. What started as a gift turned into something far more complicated. And I paid for that in ways I never expected. But maybe, just maybe, we all did. That's the end.